Hello and welcome back. This is Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana, and you are watching Marksman TV. Jumping into this is a tabletop review and firearm comparison of the Smith Wesson Model 686, the Ruger Model GP100, and the Taurus Model 627 Tracker. We will start off with a general unboxing and then move through a point-by-point comparison of the three, so you can get an idea of which features stick out to you as a shooter as you're deciding which one is best for yourself. Please stick around, that's coming up now. Alright, starting off with the unboxings, here we have the Taurus Model 627. It does come in a standard cardboard box, so go ahead and open up. Instructions, warranty information manual, all of that there. Here is your little hammer lock keys, which I'll explain how those work a little bit later. And then right in here is the revolver in a plastic sleeve. Go ahead and drop that out. It does come with a little protective housing over the rear sight, which is a nice little shipping feature. And then, of course, we'll check it clear. There is a little indicator there in the cylinder, and we are clear, and that is everything that comes with this pistol. Here we have the Ruger GP100 and this hard plastic case. I'll go ahead and open that up. Inside in the top panel is our warranty information instruction manual. Here is our gun safety lock. Right here is the revolver inside of this plastic sleeve. Go ahead and open up the cylinder. We also have another little plastic clear cylinder indicator loop there, and that is everything. And here finally we have the Smith & Wesson Model 686 in this blue Smith & Wesson hard case. So go ahead and flip it around. This has two latches on it, will open up. Inside here we do have a frame lock keys, which I'll explain how those work a little bit later. Gun safety lock instruction manual and all that information. And then right here, of course, we do have the pistol. Go ahead and open that up. We do have the little cylinder indicator there, and we are clear, and that is everything that comes with the 686. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into a general specification overview of these three, starting up here at the top with the Smith & Wesson Model 686. This particular model does come with a 4-inch barrel. It is also offered in 2.5, 3, and 6 inches. There were some off-production guns that did have an 8 3/8 inch barrel, and also there is a Performance Center which does come with a 5, but main production is 2.5, 3, 4, and 6. Now, of course, this is a satin stainless finish. If you are looking for one in a blued finish, you would be looking at the Smith & Wesson Model 586. With the 4-inch barrel, the overall length of this revolver is 9 inches. It does have a height of 6 1/4 inches. The overall weight is 37 ounces. This does retail in about the $700 to $800 range. Now, this is the 686 Plus, which means it does hold 7 rounds as opposed to the standard model, which holds 6. But like I said, whether it's the standard model, the Plus, and they also have the Pro Series, you'd be looking at about the $700 to $800 range. Moving down to the GP100, of course, this one is in the satin stainless finish as well, and it is a stainless steel frame. This is also offered in 6 inches and 3 inches in the barrel length. This one is a 4-inch, of course. With the 4-inch barrel, it does have an overall length of 9.5 inches, so about a ½ inch longer than the 686. It is 6 inches taller. Does have a weight of 40 ounces, just a little bit heavier than the 686, and of course this does have the barrel length of, actually it's 4.2 inches to be exact. Now you can get this in the alloy steel frame in the blued version. They also have this in 22LR. Of course this is in the 357 or 38 special. You can also get it in 44 special. And then of course they have the tallow edition with the wood grips, and then they have the gallery of gun model, which is a 5-inch barrel. Production gun, of course, like I said, this is 4 inches. You can also get it in 6 inches and 3 inches. The GP100 does retail in about the $600 to $700 range. Finishing up with the Model 627 Tracker, of course, this is the 4-inch barrel in the stainless steel finish. It can also be purchased in a 6-inch barrel. This can also be found in 17 HMR, 44 Magnum, 44 Special, 22 LR, and then there is the Judge line, which is chambered in 410, 45 Colt. These can be found the cheapest among the three at about $400 to $500. The overall length with the 4-inch barrel is 9 inches, so same length as the 686, a little bit shorter than the GP100. The height is 5.4 inches, so it's actually the shortest of the three. Does have a weight of 28.8 ounces, and of course this does have the barrel length of 4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about the overall fit and finish of the three, starting up here with the Smith & Wesson Model 686. Of course, the 686, as mentioned, does come in this satin stainless finish, and it is a stainless steel construction. If you like that blued finish on your revolver, take a look at the Smith & Wesson Model 586, as I mentioned previously. Now, the barrel length on this, of course, is 4 inches, which is pretty much optimal for a revolver of this size. Typically, it's the most common that you will find this in. If you do want something a little bit more accurate for the range, consider going for that 6-inch. If you want something a little bit more concealable, maybe for your glove box or a shoulder holster, consider going to the 2.5 or the 3-inch. But 4 inches is most common, and it's again what we're going to see in the other two revolvers that we're comparing. Now, there is this nice little housing here that does protect your ejector rod, so that is nice and covered. Starting up here on the front end, you do have a ramped front sight that does have this little orange painted insert on it. Really easy for your eye to quickly pick up. Overall, really utilitarian on a sight feature. Also, it is pinned in place, so you can drift that pin out and remove your front ramp sight if you would like to. On the top of the barrel, as well as on the top of the frame, you do have this nice ribbed texture, and it is a flat matte stainless finish up on the top to mitigate any of that type of back glare that you might get, especially if you're shooting on a very sunny day. So that disperses a lot of that texture up there to mitigate any of that glare. Now, the cylinder release is the standard Smith & Wesson type, which does have this serrated texturing here, kind of crosshatch texture on the rear of the button, which you do push forward to engage it to then unlock your cylinder and pop it out the side. Now, as I mentioned, this is the Plus model, so it does have a 7-round capacity. The standard 686 was designed to hold 6 rounds. And of course, as mentioned, the 686 is a 357. It can also chamber 38 special with 38 plus Ps as well. Of course, you do have the nice Smith & Wesson emblem on this side, as well as patent date information down here at the bottom, which is the location for Smith roll markings pretty much as long as they've been manufacturing guns, especially pre-lock guns. Mentioning that there is a frame lock here, which a lot of people, especially Smith collectors, don't really like. That's what those 2 keys in the box are for, so you can use that to stick there in that lock hole, turn it to lock, locks your gun out. Now, when you turn it down to lock, there will be a little arm that protrudes on this side of the hammer. That way you'll have a visual indication that the frame or the hammer is locked. Up on the top, you do have adjustable sights as well. Moving into the Ruger GP100, of course, starting up here at the front, we do have a 4-inch barrel here as well, optimal, just like we talked about in the 686. It does have a protected ejector rod here, and the front sight is drifted in. It is dovetailed and not pinned. The front sight is also ramped. It does have little serrations on it to mitigate any of that glare, but does not have any type of coloration on it like the 686 did. The top of the barrel is ribbed, but at the top we do not have a change in the finish tone like we saw in the 686. So at least up here on the barrel, you do have a lot of that kind of glare mitigation, propensity to kind of break up that glare. So good feature there as well. Overall fit and finish is very nice. It does have the satin stainless finish, very similar to what we saw on the 686. Now, the cylinder release is actually more of a button. On the 686 we pushed in. On the GP100 you actually push down or inside towards the frame as if it were literally a push button. So just push it in, and then that will release the cylinder, allowing it to pop out. Now, the standard capacity on the GP100 is 6 rounds. To my knowledge, there is no option to get a 7th round in there. At least I didn't see that on the products page on Ruger's website. If I'm incorrect about that, please let me know in the comments section. I will annotate that, but I'm fairly certain 6 rounds is the best you can do. Now, the ejector rod itself does have very good positive spring tension like on the 686. Now, it is just a smooth rod. It does not have any beveled or textured end like the 686 did, but not a big deal. Not as easy to grab onto, of course, but not a big deal. I mean, it's just dysfunctional. Closing that, of course, the lockup and everything is nice and tight. Very good overall fit and solid feel in there as well. Now, the rear sight is adjustable just like on the Smith & Wesson 686 as well. Finishing up here with the 627 tracker, of course, up here on the barrel, this is a little housing for your ejector rod as well, so keeping that nice and secure. You do have the big tracker graphics across the barrel, which I'm not too sure what I think about that. I guess it's fine. Really nice, heavy, thick barrel like we saw on the other two. Now, one difference up here on the 627 is there are ports. Ports are both a good and a bad thing. Of course, with ports, just like a cuts compensator, that was popular back in the 20s on the Thompson. What happens is on something like this in a 357, when you fire, that allows a lot of gases to fly out the top, which counteracts in helping keeping your muzzle down. So it does help you a lot with recoil, especially being a little bit lighter than the other two. That's definitely a plus. One negative, though, is if you are considering purchasing one of these as a defensive firearm, that is something you will either carry, keep in your glove box, or your nightstand. Be aware that anything that is ported or compensated like this does throw off quite a bit of flash right in your sight picture, which is a good way of temporarily blinding yourself, kind of like a flash grenade would work, or if you were to just wake up and go turn your bathroom light on or something, kind of that sort of effect. You will be seeing spots. I have personal experience with that, shooting a Glock 19C at night, not in a defensive capacity, just for fun. But it does temporarily blind you, and of course this is a 357, so keep that in mind as well. As a target gun, though, or something just for fun or for competition, actually a really good attribute to have, especially in something like a 357. The overall finish on this is a matte stainless, so you will notice it is not nearly as shiny or flashy or bright as the other two. Kind of has that dull matte finish. Now up at the top, you do not have any type of ribbing or anything to mitigate or disperse that glare, but this is a matte finish, so your propensity for getting a lot of glare from the sun on something as opposed to like the 686, something very shiny, is not going to be as big of a problem. You do have a ramped front sight, very similar to what you saw in the 686, which does have an orange insert as well. That color really is good if you have trouble seeing your sights. Maybe you're a little bit older, or your eyesight's going, or just a good feature to have, honestly. It's just easier generally for anybody to pick up your front sight picture with that there. There are also serrations on the base of the sight to help mitigate any of that glare as well. Now, your rear sight is adjustable just like on the 686 and the GP100. The cylinder release on the left-hand side of the frame works just like on the Smith Wesson 686, so you do push it forward. That will release it, allowing it to pop out. Of course, this is a 357. It'll take 38 specials, 38 plus Ps, or 357 loads, and it is a 7-round cylinder, which is standard in this model. Ejection rod, just as nice as the other two, very nice positive, and there is a beveled and textured end here, just easier to grab onto if you need to, so pretty standard nice feature there as well. Now, one other safety feature to note is there is a hammer lock, similar to what we saw on the 686. You could push that in, turn it, and it would lock the hammer out. This does come with 2 keys. So this is a feature that a lot of people will either take or leave. Most people on revolvers don't really like to have trigger or frame locks. That's why the pre-locks Smith & Wessons are a little bit more desirable. But if you do like having that feature there, this is not how you want to carry the firearm. It is not a safety meant to be used when carrying, because then you have to take your key out and unlock it if you need to use it. It's more of a feature of, say, you don't have a safe at home and you're leaving for the day and the babysitter's at home with the kids, and you just want to make sure that the gun's locked out and prying hands or wandering hands can't find it and use it. That's really what that is there for. I would recommend, honestly, just getting something without a lock feature and getting yourself a small floor safe or something. Works the same way. Actually a little bit safer in my opinion. Now, one other safety feature that both the 627 and the GP100 both have that the Smith & Wesson does not is they do have transfer bars, and what that essentially is here behind, you're not probably going to be able to pick this up, but there is a bar right there, and watch what happens as I pull the hammer back. You'll see the bar kind of lift up into position. What that transfer bar allows is for the hammer to not be able to engage the back of the striker or the firing pin without the trigger being pulled. Now let's go ahead and talk about the triggers, starting here with the 686. Now this does have a nice color case hardened trigger and hammer, so a lot of people usually look at that and think that that's like gunpowder residue or something all over it. It's actually meant to be that way. It's a very nice stylistic design in my opinion. Now, all 3 of these are what you would call a double or single action revolver. If you don't know what that means, essentially what that means is double action means when I pull the trigger, 2 actions are happening. I'm bringing back my hammer, as you can see, and then I am firing, 2 actions. If I want to, I can also fire this on single action by bringing the the hammer to the rear. So now the hammer is staged. You've seen, watch what happens when I pull my hammer back. It stages my trigger for me. And then now when I pull the trigger, 1 action happens, it just fires the gun, single action. So it can be used in either mode. All three are double single action. Now the one thing is, because I am relying on the trigger pull and double action to bring my hammer back, it does have a much heavier pull. So I'll go ahead and show you that double action pull. So you do have really heavy take up there. You can stage, it's very easy to stage Smith Wesson revolvers right there towards the end of the frame. And then from that point, it's almost like a single action pull. I can just pull through and fire the revolver. And your trigger pull on double action on the Smith & Wesson 686 is at about 11.5 to 12.5 pounds. Now, of course, I do get the benefit of staging this in single action, in which case that's the one advantage on single action. If you want that really nice accurate shot, your trigger pull from here is really only at about 2.5 to 3 pounds. Bringing in the GP100, the overall profile of the trigger is a lot thinner and a lot lighter. This is a cast part. You can see little casting lines here on this as well. The hammer is very nice. It does have very sharp edges and this little bevel in here, which I'm not too sure about. To me, that's just more of an opportunity to snag onto things, as opposed to the 686 and the 627, which are a lot, I think, lower key. But anyway, if it's got a hammer spur, you want to be careful anyway in the way that you carry. Getting into this, of course, is also double or single action. We do have a nice light pull. Actually, in my opinion, that initial take up is a lot lighter than on the 686, and it is easy to stage, which I have done now. From that staging point, you can go ahead and give it a nice gentle squeeze, and that would essentially fire the revolver in double action. Overall, that trigger weight, very, very nice and smooth. Again, I think superior to the 686, and we're looking at about 10 to 11 pounds, so about half a pound lighter, but overall very, very smooth. Now, of course, on single action, I can go ahead and stage that trigger to the rear. You see the trigger is towards the back of the frame and the hammer is in the ready position. I can go ahead and just squeeze through, again, at about 2.5 to 3 pounds, and that is all that is required to fire it on single action. Overall, very nice trigger, very, very easy pull, very smooth. And finishing up here with the Model 627 by Taurus, we do have a very nice, smooth, and narrow trigger, but on the trigger face it is actually very wide, and it is the widest of the three, which is an indicative characteristic of a target trigger. So really easy to get the pad of your finger onto, actually very nice feeling. Now going ahead and pulling through in double action, again, very nice and smooth. Not as easy to stage, actually. You really have to get familiar with the location. There would be staging the trigger on double action right there. You'd really have to get familiar with where that is, because it's not very forgiving. If you go under or over that little point, it just drops the hammer almost immediately. So with practice, it can be staged there. I did it again. Not as intuitive as the other two, though. Now, that is also really smooth travel. I would say consistent or similar to the 686, not as nice as the Ruger, but from that point, of course, we're staged, and we can go ahead and give it about 2 to 3 more pounds of pull, and it fires. And again, there on double action, we're looking at about 11.5 to 13 pounds. So on average, a little bit heavier than the 686. Again, not as nice as the GP100. Now, if we go ahead and stage it in single action, of course, you're going to have that really nice light pull. Very consistent, just like the other two. Feels very little difference. And we're at about 2.5 to 3.5 pounds. Now, the grips on the three are all kind of this rubber overmolded type texture. On the 686, you do have little finger grooves, and it is nice that you do have the S&W emblem there and on this side as well. So there is no confusing the fact that these are made for a Smith & Wesson revolver. Now, the cool thing is you can get factory, either old or new stock, grips and stick those on there depending on the frame type. I believe this is a round butt. You can also, there's squared butts, and then the different frame sizes. For around $100 you can get a genuine pair, and it will really make the revolver stand out. But the rubber grips are utilitarian. They do absorb recoil better than wood, and are generally a little bit more comfortable and do grip onto your hand as well. They're not as kind of smooth and don't get as slippery as wood grips do, especially if your hands are perspiring at all. The Ruger GP100, of course, uses a Hogue rubber grip as well, with a very nice texturing here, which we didn't see that type of texturing on the 686. It is not overly aggressive and actually very positive, with good finger grooves, and in my opinion, the most comfortable grip out of the three. Again, there is like the Match Champion grips, which are very nice looking. You can get the tallow grip, so there are plenty of wood grip options available for this, which look excellent on this pistol, especially in the stainless. So you can find those on the market and install them yourself pretty easily. Of course, you also have the Ruger emblems here, so there is no mistaking, at least on this side, that there is a Ruger grip panel, and of course on this side it's just plain. The Taurus is also a rubber grip, and they always put these weird kind of ribs on it that you can kind of fold. I don't know how I feel about it. To me, not as comfortable as the other two. You don't have any type of finger grooves, but these do kind of bend and mold into where you're placing your hand, which I guess is a good idea, but it just feels kind of strange if you're not used to it. You do have the Taurus emblems here on the bottom of both grip panels. I don't know about any type of aftermarket support for these. I'm sure that there are. At this price point and what you're looking at, very utilitarian anyway. Not really meant to be as showpiece-esque as the other two, especially with the matte finish. So what it comes with is ideal in my opinion. Got a very nice grip palm swell here in the back. Actually feels pretty comfortable, but for something especially in 357, leaves a little bit to be desired, but overall it'll do, especially at the price point. Here are some general takeaways of these three. So again, to give you some perspective, $686 in about the $700 to $800 price range, GP100 at about the $600 to $700 price range, and the 627 in about the $400 to $500 price range. So, I mean, if you look hard enough, you can almost find the 627 at about half the price as a 686. So, is it worth it? Do they fit well within their price points? I would say yes. At their core, for what you are paying, you're definitely not overpaying for a Smith Wesson Model 686, and you're not overpaying for a 627. I think as far as the features and benefits and the type of the quality of the overall build of the three, you get very much what you pay for. Does that mean that the 627 is a very cheap and horrible firearm? No, I don't think so. I think what you are getting for the money is actually a very decent and very good product. And if I were on a $450 budget, for example, and I'm looking for a range 357, I would not really have any qualms with going with this route. Taurus is a company that a lot of people really love to hate, and personally I have my own recent story with them and their customer service, which I think has been atrocious. In the past it's been great, but I just had to send in a gun for a customer. It's been with them now for about 4 months. They've kind of gone silent. They're not giving me any updates. So I've just written off the gun and refunded the customer his money. So I'm honestly not very happy with them as a company right now, and that's why I am telling you this story. So I'm not trying to be here and say, you know, oh, go buy a Taurus, it's a great gun for the money. Their customer service is awful. I will be very honest about that. I am a testament to that. So I like to tell people that if customer service is important to you, stick away from Taurus. Just do it. On the other hand, both Smith and Wesson and Ruger, especially Ruger, in my opinion, customer service is just absolutely top notch. Here, running a gun store for several years, we've had to deal with basically all the manufacturers, and Ruger, I will probably say, is the best. They are no questions asked, get the problem handled in a very short amount of time, always friendly personnel. So I do really I like to speak well where I can about people who do a good job, and Ruger, at least their customer service, I'm not talking about the gun, customer service has been excellent if you're looking at any Ruger brand firearms. Smith & Wesson also never had an issue with. In fact, I can't even think of too many circumstances where I've had to send a Smith & Wesson in, maybe once, and if I can remember, I don't remember. Usually having horrible experiences stick out in my memory, so I don't really have too much memory of dealing with Smith in terms of services or anything, service recalls or getting any type of warranty work done. But so great products, great customer service. Price point, Smith & Wesson versus the GP100. Honestly, I think that they both have a lot of similarities. I think they fit very much within the same ballpark. I think if it's worth it to you, what you're paying the extra $100 for is the Smith & Wesson name and prestige, and the fact that they've been making revolvers. They're one of the longest standing companies in the United States that have been making revolvers for a very long time. They're very high quality, very well made. Just excellent, excellent craftsmanship. I think for the extra $100, if you just want to have a Smith & Wesson in the collection, totally worth it. I own a 686 myself. I have for several years. Definitely, probably my favorite 357 on the market. So for that price point, you can't go wrong. And Smiths hold their value. If you're going to resell a Smith & Wesson revolver, I will tell you, as being a gun store owner, and I know other people in the industry as well. If somebody comes through the door with a used Smith & Wesson, usually really excited to see it because they sell very well, both online and in the store. There's a lot of people who collect them. You don't really get too many like Ruger collectors. You don't really get too many like Taurus collectors, but there are a ton of Smith collectors. For that reason, they're a good, well-made gun. They have a lot of prestige and a lot of history. So quality is excellent again on these two for the price. Very doable. This to me is very utilitarian, inexpensive, entry level. I have owned Taurus revolvers myself, and again, I think for what you're paying, if you're not paying a super high amount of money, $800 for this would be way overpriced, but $400, $450, good value for what you're getting. Not a problem, just hope it never breaks because you'll have a headache dealing with Taurus. But anyway, that's my overview on these guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed that, please let me know by hitting that like button. If you want to see other videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Again, this is Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. We will see you next time.